I think we all have this in common. We'll talk about interruptions.
Yes.
How many of you have never, ever, ever been interrupted in your life? That's what I thought. The rest of my case, we're going to talk about something that all of us have in common. But we're going to talk about it from the perspective of ministry. Interruptions in leadership, church leadership. And to do that, I want to bring you up to the interruptions in my own life that make this subject very relevant tonight, and also explain why I wasn't here last month, because if you had the list of who teaches when and what subjects, I was supposed to be here last month teaching on this subject. And we switched at almost the last minute, and Dr. Terry Coy came in my place. He was supposed to teach tonight. He was happy to switch because yesterday he landed from Honduras after a week there, and according to the original schedule, he would have hopped on another plane and come down here. So he was glad to switch with me. And I understand he did all of it in Spanish last month. I'm not going to do that. So you'll be surprised. We'd be out of here in 5 minutes if I started what I know of Spanish. Sorry. Our son just recently retired. I don't know how this happened. He's 52 years old, he retired. I'm 83 and I've retired 3 times. And it's not working yet. But he retired from Homeland Security in Washington, D.C. And one of the things he learned late in his time with Homeland Security was about a test called the cardiac score. And it checked the amount of plaque in your heart arteries. It was so new that insurance wouldn't cover it, at least not yet. And he eventually took that scan and scored 0, which means he had no plaque anywhere in his body. And he started pushing for his mother and I to take the scan. I didn't figure I needed it. I'd never had a heart problem, never felt bad hardly in my life. And I was doing great. But he kept pushing, You need to take the test, and yada, yada. Now, in June when we were here, my wife was having some tightness in her chest and some shortness of breath, and she's back, by the way, but she kind of, maybe you better take that test, see. She scored a 1, which basically means she's got the same amount of plaque in her system as a coat hanger. None. So I'm thinking, well, I might as well take it. Maybe I can score a 2 or something. I took it and knocked the top out of the curve. I scored 2,000 and something, with a note on the bottom of my report, see a cardiologist ASAP. So I went to see the cardiologist, and more tests and all of that was interrupting the time I was supposed to be down here teaching. And I'm taking tests. The nuclear stress test. I like that one. Some of you probably took the stress test in earlier days when it was, you get on a treadmill and you walk, and they speed it up and you walk, and then they turn it this way and you walk like you're walking uphill. I nearly died on a treadmill a couple of times. I fell off, that's dangerous. So this is the nuclear stress test. You lay down and you go into the tube and they tell you just relax, we're going to exercise you while you lay here. I said, hey, this is good. I could probably exercise on a regular basis if this was the case. And so they say, you'll be in there 25 minutes, and they walk you through it. And at one point she said, now the next 2 minutes, we're going to speed up your heart as fast as we can get it to go, and it's going to feel like you're running uphill, and you're probably going to get dizzy. So do what you would do if you were running up the hill and you got dizzy. And I said, I can't. She said, what? I said, what I would do is run home. And you got all these wires in me, I can't run home. Okay. Mr. Smart Aleck, you know. So they did. I didn't feel anything except a rush of kind of cool air, and it opened up my sinuses. I said, can I come by here every morning, you know, just for 2 minutes is all I need. Just give me those 2 minutes and open up my sinuses. Well, as a result, I met with the cardiologist, and he said, you've got a lot of plaque below your heart, which if you're going to have it, that's the good place to have it. The upper arteries are the dangerous ones. They're the ones they call the widowmaker. And the cardiologist says, anybody in your family ever have heart trouble? And I said, my dad had triple bypass. My brother had quadruple bypass. My mother had tachycardia, which is a speeding up of the heart. He turned to the nurse and said, write down inherited. He said, you probably had plaque since you were 20 years old. Okay, so what are we going to do now? He said, well, the next step is the angioplasty. We're going to look inside and look at the heart from the inside and see what's going on. Maybe we'll put in a stent or two. Maybe we'll find that it's so clogged in there, we'll just wheel you on over to surgery and do a bypass. You know, now I'm getting kind of scared because you sign your life away and then you go to sleep. And when you wake up, they tell you what all you had done. Maybe that's better that way. I don't know. Anyway, he said it's not urgent. We can do it tomorrow if you want to. Whenever you're ready, we'll do the angioplasty. I said, well, I'm kind of busy till sometime early in November. And he said, okay, I'll see you in November. So I got out with a see you in November. He told my wife, see you in 6 months. She got out doing good. That's the interruption. And you can kind of tell from all those facts that suddenly your life is interrupted and you start thinking different. I mean, I guess I'm going to die. I scored 2,000 on the silly thing. And you start planning things, you know, well, I guess I better be sure everybody knows what they need to do and yada, yada, yada. Interruptions. And it interrupted ministry. Obviously, I wasn't here. I was supposed to be here teaching. I wasn't here. I didn't miss a Sunday preaching, but I scared a whole congregation of people who were pretty sure I was going to pass out during the sermon at some point. And I didn't, and some of them were disappointed that they wanted more excitement at church. But, you know, interruptions in ministry happens to us. So have you ever had a day where you never got around to your to-do list? I assume everybody's got some kind of list. We used to put them on index cards. Now you can put it on your cell phone or your iPad or wherever. You got an electronic to-do list. But somewhere, if it's nothing more than just in your mind, you know what you're going to do that day. And you get up and you say, this is what I got to do. But you never get to the first thing on your list. Jesus had a day like that. At least one we know of, and it is recorded in the 5th chapter of Mark. Exactly. And on that day, he had 4 interruptions that interrupted his ministry. They're all rather lengthy passages, and if you've got the outline, you see the scripture references there. I don't think I'll read 20 verses at a time for you, but you can see it and you can read it, and most of you know these stories anyway. So I will walk you through some of it. But let me share a quote with you, and by the way, I came across an article once that was entitled, "The Ministry of Interruptions." And I didn't like the title when I saw it, but when I read the article, I realized that's good. We who do ministry sometimes have to do ministry in the midst of interruptions. So how do you do that? Now I want to share a quote with you from C.S. Lewis, and then I want to show you 4 interruptions in the life of Jesus, and then we're going to switch to the Apostle Paul, because he had a night of interruptions. The ones Jesus had came from circumstances and so forth. The one Paul had came from God himself. So there are good interruptions and there are bad interruptions. Either way, they interrupt what we plan to do. And then I'm going to give you some practical suggestions. How can you live with interruptions in your own ministry? I don't know whether it's good or bad, but when you live as long as I have lived, you collect a lot of illustrations, a lot of stories. So I find myself telling more stories the older I get. So my apologies if you don't like my stories, but that they illustrate what I'm trying to say. A quote from C.S. Lewis, too long for you to write down, just listen to what this guy says. The great thing, if one can, is to stop regarding all the unpleasant things as interruptions of one's own life. The truth is, of course, that what one calls an interruption is precisely one's real life. The life God is giving us day by day. In other words, interruptions are normal. They happen to all of us. And Lewis is saying, just accept the interruptions as part of your life. This is what God wanted you to do today, not what you have on your to-do list. It happens. So let's look at some examples. Jesus.
What's going on?
Mark 5, first 20 verses show Jesus to be interrupted by a haunted person. You pastors are going to love this. All of my points start with H. You know, the good preaching outline. All start with H. Haunted, hurting, hopeless. This is the haunted one. And Jesus has had a casual little trip across the sea, probably relaxing, got his to-do list, tucked away somewhere in his robe. Where do you put do list in robes? I don't know. He had his do list with him. He knew what he was going on. We don't know what he was going to do. The Bible doesn't tell us what he planned to do on the other side of the sea. He didn't get to do it. As he was getting out of the boat, the scripture says immediately, like 1 foot out and 1 foot still in. Immediately, here is this interruption, and the guy is what you would describe as a haunted person. Scripture describes him. He was naked, for one thing, scarred, bleeding, matted hair, cursing, confronting Jesus. Think about it. What would you do? This guy showed up at church next Sunday. About the time you start to preach, Pastor. And he comes on down to the front. Has a seat on the second row. And you start worrying about him. I mean, he's weird looking. Strange looking. Maybe a unpleasant odor about him. And you're hoping that he doesn't interrupt your sermon. But at the same time, you're thinking, now what are we going to do at the end when we all stand up and hold hands and sing, "There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place"? Who's going to hold his hand?
I know.
We don't like haunted people. They get in our way. They scare us. And here's Jesus trying to do whatever he was going to do over there. We don't know. But here is this haunted person interrupting his life. So the outline calls for an illustration. Let me give you an illustration. We'll come back to how Jesus handled it. But let me give you an illustration. We had been in the valley 2 or 3 weeks when Hurricane Beulah hit. By the way, she was born during Beulah. Did your parents name you Beulah? No?
No, but everybody calls me Beulah. That's my name.
Okay.
If they say.
She just told me that. It's interesting. I always wondered who caused that storm. Birth of a baby.
The made you 67?
67.
67.
Hurricane Beulah. I was director of the Baptist Student Center at Pan American. it blew the roof off our center and tore it up and rained inside of it and all this. And so, long story made short there, we had to move out because they had to completely gut the building and rebuild it. And so we moved into a house next door to First Baptist Church of Edinburgh, and that was our temporary Baptist Student Center. It's obviously not next to the campus, so we didn't have that access, but you know, we had people coming in and out. And I'm sitting in the, maybe that was a bedroom, I don't know where it was, and I turned it into an office. And I'm sitting there looking down at my desk, and I look up, and there he is. He looked like Mark chapter 5. Matted hair, terrible complexion. Grammar was absolutely horrible. When he started talking, he couldn't put a sentence together. And he started telling me his story. Recently discharged from the U.S. Navy, couldn't keep a job, marriage had failed. And just, you know, you just start into all of it, and you just sit there and listen to it. And finally, you know, sometimes I have been known to do things without thinking very much about it ahead of time. It was one of those occasions. I just opened the drawer and took the key out and set it on the desk. I said, "Here, you're my janitor. Keep the building clean, mow the yard, unlock it early in the morning, lock it up late at night. You're my main man." And he started crying. A couple of hours later, I started crying. What have I done? I just turned it all over to this haunted guy.
That's like,
You would be amazed, maybe you wouldn't be amazed, because maybe you've seen this happen before in other people's lives, but it was amazing the transformation that took place in his life. Finally, somebody trusted him. Somebody cared enough about him to say, "Here, you're in charge." And things began to change. I was pretty sure, he had enrolled in Pan American, I was pretty sure he wasn't going to make it. When you can't put a noun and a verb in the same sentence, it's going to be hard to pass freshman English, much less some of the other classes he had to take. And he only lasted 2 years. But everything about his life changed. I never had a cleaner office than that one. He'd be up there late at night cleaning after it had already been cleaned. I mean, he just took it serious. But behind all of that new excitement in his life was this dysfunctional background haunting him. I don't know that he ever completely got over it. But what if? And that's the question we can ask 4 times here in Mark chapter 5. What if? What if I had looked up and seen him and said to him, "Did you knock? Did you make an appointment? I don't have time to talk to you today. Would you come back tomorrow?" He might have come back tomorrow. He might have come back every day. Sometimes those kind of folks do. But you just sort of imagine what would have happened if I had not dealt with him at the moment when he came in to talk. And the fact that I did, no compliment to me, I just did what I thought I should do, but it really changed him. So and these folks are all around us. I'm pretty sure you know 1 or 2 of these. Dysfunctional. Some of them cry out, some of them don't make any noise. They just suffer in silence. But they're haunted. And we deal with them. And when they intersect our lives, it's usually an interruption. They don't plan ahead very well. They're not too organized. They just do what they do. And sometimes it gets in the way of our to-do list. So how did Jesus deal with it? You know, he could have ignored it. He could have said, "Get this guy out of the boat." He could have delegated it. That would have been neat to see. Hey, Simon Peter. How do you think that would have worked? Turn that guy over to Simon Peter. That wouldn't have been a pretty sight. Or John, the philosopher. John, come here and think about this for a while before you do something. That wouldn't have worked. Delegation, usually not the best way out of that. God put the person in front of you, your chance to minister. So Jesus released him, verse 13. Then the unclean spirit went out and entered into the swine, and the scripture says there were 2,000 pigs. And the evil spirit, demon spirit, whatever that was, there's all kind of theories as to what demon possession meant. Whatever it was, they ran into the swine.
Things at the wall.
You ever read scripture and you're just reading along and you go, what? And you got to back up and read that again. What? Well, this is one of those places. You're reading along and say, pigs? What are all those pigs doing in Jewish territory? The Jews never have liked pigs. They don't like them today. Somebody this morning said a good pig is bacon. Now we know why God created pigs. Bacon. No, and the animal appreciation people, bless their hearts, the animal activists, well, look at Jesus. He just hates pigs. Isn't that great? You got a Lord that disrespects animals. No, here's the deal. Pigs are created in the image of pigs. Humans, even dysfunctional, haunted humans, are created in the image of God. There's a difference. So Jesus wasn't being disrespectful to this herd of swine. He was just being respectful to this one man who desperately needed some help. And he released him. So you ever have any of these folks in your life? Jesus did. And he gets back in the boat.
Certain spot.
Verses 21 through 24. He's back in the boat. Again, I don't, what did he go over there to do? And why didn't he go ahead and do what he went to do? It was on his to-do list. Had to be a reason he went over there. But he gets back in the boat. And across the water they go. I don't know if he went back to where he left or he went somewhere else. They're back on the water. They go across. And this time, he's interrupted by a hurting person. An important guy.
Sure.
We get his name, Jairus. He's a synagogue official. He's got some status. And he's hurting. And again, the word immediate shows up in most translations. Immediately, as Jesus was getting out of the boat, here is Jairus. And he's hurting because his daughter is ill and possibly dying. And the scripture says he begged Jesus to go see his daughter. There is nothing, probably nothing in this world more painful than a parent grieving over a sick child. It crosses all of society. This is not something that just happens in one group or another group. It's true everywhere you look. When children suffer, their parents suffer more. In fact, we sometimes say, this hurts me more than it does you, and we laugh about that statement, but it's true. Parents suffer the most across the board. Let me take you back, it was a couple of years, I'm not sure exactly the time frame. Let's go back to Uvalde and that horrible shooting in the elementary school. And look at the news clips and you see these parents Some of them have lost their children. Some of them have children that are seriously in the hospital and suffering, and they're grieving. They're weeping in front of the cameras. Nothing hurts quite as bad as when your child is hurting. And the more you watch those news clips, you get the idea, and I've never been to Uvalde, and I may be 100 miles off on this one, but it appears as though this is a poor community. That these are not rich people. This is not a wealthy school. They may be middle class, they may be a notch below middle class people. Society-wise,
Yeah.
and they hurt. Now let's speed up the calendar and let's go to Kerrville and watch the river come roaring down through those girls' camps and wash those little girls down the river. And you're back to the news clips and the parents are weeping and crying, but they look a little different. So where are these parents from? Houston. They are attorneys and CEOs and school principals. You know, these are people of some status in society, but it's the same on every level of society. Nothing hurts quite as bad as when your child is hurting. And if you minister among people who hurt. Some of the times it's because their children are hurting. And in the day in which we live, that could be anything in the world, from drug involvement to, you just start down the list and you know what all they are. And the parents hurt. And after all, who goes to these summer camps except kids of parents who want to spend 5 weeks in Europe? So they send their kids to camp. I was in one of those camps, and I worked in one of those camps in Arkansas when I was younger, and it was an expensive camp. It was for rich kids. And the parents all went somewhere, and dumped the kids off at camp for 5 weeks. And one of my favorite days of camp, not because it was the end of the 5-week session, but because of what all happened on the last day, on parent pickup day. Here they came to get their kids in BMWs and Cadillacs and Mercedes and Saabs and rich folks. I said, what were you doing there? Well, my best friend told his daddy he wouldn't go unless I would go, and so his rich daddy paid for me to go. So I was kind of the odd duck in camp. I didn't have rich parents in Europe. In fact, my grandfather came to pick me up, and it was kind of funny. He came up the hill in his high-mileage Chevrolet. But I was as proud as anybody else in camp. But that's who went to camp. It still is. So the comparison to this rather low-income area of Uvalde and the pain they were feeling, and the upper-level society, Camp Mystic on the Guadalupe River. Same pain. And so there's nothing quite like the pain that a parent feels when the child is sick, maybe even dying. When our daughter was young, she suffered from severe asthma. I spent several nights setting up with her in the recliner chair because when she would lay down, she couldn't breathe. So we'd set up all night. I didn't get to sleep much. But I remember several nights actually praying that God would transfer her difficulty breathing over to me so she could sleep. That's a pretty drastic prayer. But it comes out of the fact that I was hurting because she was hurting. Hurting people, they're all around us. Her pain was debilitating. My pain was devastating. You got anybody like that around? Interrupting your life because of their pain? So what did Jesus do? Verse 24, Jesus went with him. And that was relief just to know that Jesus was on his way to take care of the child. I felt that kind of relief. We lived out in the country back then, and the town, the small town that we lived out of didn't have a very good hospital. So the nearest emergency room was 20, 30 minutes away or so, and I've had to drive her in the middle of the night sometimes to that emergency room because she wasn't getting her breath. And as I would drive and pray, the comfort that would come was to know that Jesus was going with us and would get us there before she stopped breathing. Jesus offers relief. What if? What if Jesus had said to Jairus, "Can't you see I'm busy? I've already had one interruption today. And now you want me to stop what I'm doing and go take care of your daughter. Can't you take care of your own daughter? Hey, Peter." How do you think that would have gone? Delegating the responsibility. "John, take care of this." No. It was an interruption that was put right into front of Jesus as he's getting out of the boat, and immediately he responds. So where are we? Chapter 5, verse 25. Now we get interrupted by a hopeless person. To put it into context, Jesus is on his way with Jairus to see the daughter, and he gets interrupted. Now we've got an interruption in the midst of an interruption. This lady is hopeless. She's discouraged. She's distraught. She's been bleeding for 12 years and nobody can figure out why, and they can't stop it. And she's out of money, and she's gone to see all the doctors and specialists that she can afford to see, and she's still sick, and she has this idea somehow that if she could just touch the bottom of his robe, she'd get help. Hopeless. You know any of those folks? Sure you do. Here's the hopeless person in our society who is so financially hopeless they keep buying lottery tickets in hopes that someday, some way, their number will get called and all their financial problems will be over because they've won the lottery. By the way, if that happens in your church, be sure they tithe off of it. Satan's had that money long enough. It's time to put some of it in the church. All right, here they are. They're so hopeless. They're trying to see an image of Jesus in the screen door. Or they're so hopeless because of some disease, something that's gone wrong physically, that they keep going to people who proclaim themselves to be faith healers in hopes that somehow, some way, when the altar call is given, they can go forward and somebody will lay hands on them and they'll get healed. Now, let me qualify that. I believe in faith healing, 100%. I am one. At age 16, broken second vertebrae of the neck. Now, medical science has done wonders through the years with everything imaginable, and that's one of them. But in the 50s, if you broke the second vertebrae of your neck, you were either dead or paralyzed. There were no other options. They didn't know what to do with me. I was scheduled twice for surgery, and they canceled the surgery. One time after I had already been shaved and soaped, or whatever all they do to get you ready for surgery. I was on my way to surgery when it got called off. 9 months of being a medical guinea pig. And my atheist surgeon, who happened to be supposedly the best surgeon available, but he was an atheist, he kept trying everything he could try. And at the end of 9 months, he said, I don't understand it, but your neck has healed. You're free to go do whatever you want to do. My dad, my pastor father, was thanking him, and he said, my surgeon said, don't thank me. I had nothing to do with this. I'm 16 years old now, smart aleck teenage kid sitting over in the corner thinking, I know who had something to do with it. Wasn't you. But see, I had observed what went on during those 9 months. My mother was president of the Pastors' Wives Association for Houston Baptist Association, Union Baptist Association. So churches all over the place knew about me through her. My dad was a rather popular pastor in Houston, and a lot of other pastors knew him from various meetings and associations, and they prayed. Now I'm 16 and I've been healed, and the word gets out, and if you got a story, then every youth group in town wants you to come and tell it. So I hit the circuit. You know, I was on call. I get invited to go places and speak to youth groups. I went, when you're hot, you know. I was hot. So I was on the road. And everywhere I'd go, somebody'd come up either before or during or after and say, yeah, I prayed for you. Yeah. So how did I get healed when you weren't supposed to get over a broken second vertebrae of the neck? Surgeon said, I didn't have anything to do with it. I tell you who broke the second vertebrae of their neck the month after I did, Domingo. It was Roy Campanella, the Hall of Fame catcher for the then Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah. And he never got over it. He lived the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So I believe in faith healing. What I don't believe in is faith healers. I'm not looking for somebody to lay their hands on my neck. I mean, God may use them. I don't make those decisions. God may use somebody to bring about healing, but they ought not take credit for it. It came from God. So don't spend a lot of time looking for a faith healer. Just hit your knees. That's where it comes from. So Jesus is encountered and interrupted by this hopeless person. For 17 years, I took a group of seminary students. At the end of the school year, took 10 at a time to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It was a practicum. We spent a week studying church starts and churches existing and campus ministries and everything that was in a city of 3 million people. Why Vancouver? Because it was a good example of New Age, postmodern, all those things. And you could say to this group of students, if you think that you may serve in a church in a city, you need to look at Vancouver, because that's what your city's going to look like one of these days. I took 17 groups of 10. At the end of my tenure, when I retired from the seminary, there were 16 guys back in Vancouver who graduated and went back up there to start a church. They're my alumni group. They said, that's nice. He brings 10, he tithes 1 every year. Kind of what it worked out to be. In the van, they talked about getting voted off the van. Don't mess up, we'll vote you off the van, you get to stay. They went back. And when I retired, the Baptist General Convention of Texas said, no, you need to keep going up there because we need you to do vision tours. And so then I'm going 6 times a year, taking pastors, church leaders to the city of Vancouver. And among other things, I took them down to Main Street in the inner city core to show them Carnegie Library. Now here's a booming city growing up to the population of 3 million. And they go to Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in America at the time, and ask him if he would give them enough money to build a library. And he agreed with this stipulation. There will be nothing in that library that represents religion. No Bibles, no books, no magazines, no meetings, nothing. And they agreed. And they got their library. So I would take the group down to show it to them. It's a beautiful building, corner of Main and something or other. I forget which intersection it was. And we'd stand over on the other corner and look across. I said, that's the story behind it. What do you see over there? And it was, I always got the same answers. Well, there's a drug deal going down over there. There's a homeless guy sleeping under the tree over there. That intersection in the city of Vancouver is the largest drug abuse intersection in all of Canada. Because one man interrupted the growth of a city and said, you can have this, I'll give you the money, but don't mention religion. Whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. They got what they wanted, but they didn't want what they got.
What about it?
One guy interrupts, and it becomes a hopeless situation. They can't get rid of it. They've tried everything in the world to get rid of it. Doesn't go away. Well, let me give you a positive illustration. That's too negative. I don't want you to go home thinking about that all night. My wife and I were in Maribor, Slovenia. Missionaries took us down to the capital, to the square in this capital city, and showed us where Hitler stood to announce that he had conquered Slovenia in his attempt to conquer Europe and the world. But he had captured this city and this country, and he announced in this famous speech that never again would religion be allowed in the city of Maribor, the country of Slovenia. And I took the picture. I wish I had to show you. I took the picture of the town square where he stood to make that announcement. And right behind where I took the picture was the front door of the Baptist church, where Randy and Joan Bell, IMB missionaries with Southern Baptists, started the church. Hitler thought he interrupted the whole system, but the people that really interrupted it were Randy and Joan Bell. Because it was a hopeless situation. So Jesus, this hopeless woman, just reaches out, touches his robe, and he says, who touched me? Come on, Jesus. There's 1,000 people out here. You think somebody touched you? How did you know? He said, power went out. What did he do? He healed her. Verse 34, daughter, your faith has made you well. You know any hopeless people? What if Jesus had said, somebody touched me, get your hands off me. Just got this robe back from the washateria. Find out who touched me. Somebody find out who touched me. Hey, Peter. That's not going to go well. You don't delegate. I mean, it was right there, and he dealt with it. So we got one more. Starts in verse 35 through verse 43. Now he's interrupted by a helpless person. He finally is on his way. He's been interrupted in the midst of an interruption, but he's finally on his way to Jairus' house, and here come the people coming the other way saying, go back. Never mind. She's dead. Now we got a helpless situation. I said, well, nothing you can do about it. She died. You didn't get there in time. But we know the rest of that story. He's on his way. And he's going to tell her to rise. And we love those stories. So, you can imagine a mission team doing something like that. Somebody take a picture. It's good. We'll put this on our brochure. This could make the cover of the Baptist Standard. I mean, this is good stuff. Healed. Jesus didn't seem to care much about that. So I had another group of seminary students with me in El Salvador. We were going out to a small village, Nuevo Sitio, I'm not sure I got that word pronounced right. Nuevo Sitio del Niño. City of the little something or other, I don't know, it doesn't matter. We're going out of this village because there's a pastor that's starting a church in a home. And the missionaries wanted the students to see this. We're on our way out there, and the people came down the road as we got in this little village and stopped us. I said, you're going to the pastor's house, don't go, he's dying.
Yeah.
He had an aneurysm, he's laying on the couch and he's dying, don't go. I said, you know, we've come a long ways, and I think these seminary students need to learn something, so let us go. We'll just stand outside and pray. Okay. When we got there, the front yard was covered with people. And I guess because we didn't look like the rest of them, they invited us to go inside. Now we're in the living room, packed in there with all these people, and they're praying. And it reminded me in the book of Acts where it talks about being in one accord and all praying together. And I never thought about when everybody prays at the same time out loud. And some were praying in Spanish and some were praying in English, and I think some others were praying in something I didn't understand. But everybody's praying. Because it's a helpless situation. And all of a sudden, Pastor Cesar sets up on the couch and says, Gloria a Dios. Gloria a Dios. And he grabs his guitar and his Bible. He said, let's go preach. And out the door he goes. And now I got a group of seminary students going, we don't know what happened. They're following him out the door. So we go observe what he does. What happened? It was a hopeless, helpless kind of situation. Not too much unlike what Jesus encountered when they said, she's already dead. So he goes to the house and he says, give her some food. Food in the Bible always is symbolic with life. You give food, you're giving life. So what he was really offering her was life. Give her some food. And what do you know? She wasn't dead. Now, there's all kind of theories, and you can come up with your own. What happened? Was she dead and came back to life? Was she in a coma? I don't know. Just take it for what it says. It was a helpless kind of situation, and he intervened because he was interrupted. So the haunted person, he offered release. To the hurting person, he offered relief. To the hopeless person, he offered healing. To the helpless person, he offered life. And next time you have a day when you can't get to your to-do list because somebody keeps interrupting you, go back and read Mark chapter 5 and see how Jesus did with all those interruptions. I don't know that he ever got to number one on his to-do list. There's no record of it. There's no even implication that he got to do what he got up to do that morning. He just kept getting interrupted. And he kept ministering in the midst of the interruptions. Now let's switch to Acts 16. Let's talk about the Apostle Paul because his interruptions came from God. He's in the midst of his second missionary journey. You remember he took 3 missionary journeys, maybe 4 if you count his attempt to go to Rome, go to the West. Nevertheless, this is the second one. First journey, I wish I had a map. First journey, he starts down here and he goes around circular and back home. End of first journey. Second journey, he's on the way, and his purpose is to revisit all these places where he started churches and strengthen them. But he gets along about 10 o'clock, and he gets interrupted. God's interruptions. Verses 5, 6, 7, 8. When they'd gone through Phrygia and the region of Galatia, they were forbidden by the Holy Spirit to preach the word in Asia. After they'd come to Mysia, they tried to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit did not permit them. So passing by Mysia, they came down to Troas. Now that's a lot of names, and they're going around trying to get back over here, and they get stopped. The Spirit stopped them. Have you ever been stopped by the Holy Spirit? That's a scary thing. The Holy Spirit wouldn't let them go this way or that way or any other way. They go down to Troas, and they've worked all day long trying to get to here, so it's bedtime, and they go to bed, and all of a sudden, Paul gets interrupted with revelations. Not revelation, that's the last book in the Bible. Revelations, plural. Revealing. God reveals some things to him. That idea of God's interruptions is personal to me, because when I was 12 years old in the 6th grade, the teacher asked us to write a paragraph on what we're going to be when we grow up. Everybody had to write that paragraph somewhere along the way. What are you going to be when you grow up? And I wrote my little paragraph and said, when I grow up, I want to either be a missionary to Canada or a professional baseball player. She thought that was cute. She called my pastor father. He thought it was cute, and we had to talk about it at dinner that night. Write a letter to the mission board. Tell them God's called you to Canada. 12 years old, handwritten letter. Mailed it off. I got a form letter back. Dear sir, I'm 12 years old. Dear sir, thank you for your interest in Canada. Unfortunately, we don't have missionaries in Canada. Whoa. That's kind of an interruption in 2 ways. I said, well, I'm not going to Canada. Solve that problem. I'm going to be a professional baseball player. And that stopped at the age of 16, about that broken second vertebrae I told you about. Kind of put a screeching halt to that desire, because God had another plan. And he interrupted. And then come the revelations, verse 9. A vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia stood and pleaded with him, saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. He had no intentions of going to Macedonia. He may not have known where Macedonia was. But all of a sudden, God is revealing, this is what I have for you. Go to Macedonia. And he did. One door closed, another door opens. They don't always happen that quick. But from Mysia to Troas, a night's rest, a vision. People hear from God in all kind of ways. Some hear him in the thunder, some hear him in the lightning, some hear him in silence. Jonah heard him inside of a big fish. Peter heard from him one step out onto the water. I mean, there's all kind of ways we hear from God. And God gives to Paul this revelation. Go there, do that. I write a little paragraph every Monday. It's called Dr. Dan's Monday Morning Manna. It's no big deal. It's just a little paragraph. It's the jump start of the week. It's posted on social media, and some people are subscribed to it and get it through their email. And several weeks ago, I wrote this: during my college years, my future could have made a drastic turn. A friend and I noticed that there would be a minor league baseball tryout in Arizona that summer, and we decided we would drive his car out and participate. We had no hope of ever playing in the major leagues, but we thought just one summer in the lower minor leagues, living in somebody else's home, eating lots of bologna sandwiches and taking long bus rides to hometowns of other teams would be a dream come true for us. See, we weren't fighting God. We weren't saying, God, I am going to do this, whether you like it or not. We were just saying, hey, God, one summer, okay, the short summer, and we'll be back. Well, the week before we were to leave, his car broke down, and we spent the summer going to summer school and dreaming of what might have been. And the following summer, when we read about those camps, we were already focused on seminary and a future in the ministry. God has a way, doesn't he? I was just saying, not that way, you're going this way. Not that, it's this. God's revelations. And then verse 10 give us God's directions now. After he had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go to Macedonia, concluding that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel to them. Notice that about leadership. He saw the vision. We went to Macedonia. Next time your pastor announces he's had a vision from God, follow him. If it's not from God, it'll die on its own. If it is from God, you'll find yourself in trouble fighting it. Paul saw a vision, and whoever all was with him said, we followed. God's direction. So I got God's directions. God called me. I was at summer camp, Palacios Baptist Encampment up the coast a little ways. And God called me. I didn't know exactly what he wanted, but I knew he called, and he said, this is the directions I want for you. You do this now, and we'll see about next time. And I am so glad he didn't give me the whole picture up front. He didn't say, I'm calling you, and I want you to go to every state in the United States and every Canadian province and 59 countries of the world, and I want you to write 28 books. And when you're 83 years old, I want you teaching in the Rio Grande Valley. I would have jumped in the Gulf of Mexico and swam east. I mean, that would have, at teenage, that would have scared me to death. I'm so glad God gives us one step at a time. And so he did with Paul. He didn't tell him on the first day of that first journey, by the way, on your second journey, something big is going to happen. He just let him do his thing. And somewhere out here on the second one, this guy from Macedonia shows up in the night in a vision. Okay. Your day of interruptions and how to respond. Have a plan for that day, any day, that allows for adjustment. Now, if you are in ministry of any kind and you haven't learned that adjustment is your key word, you might as well go ahead and take it from me. Adjustment. We live in adjustments, whatever the plans are. Be ready for adjustment. Expect interruptions. Determine that if an interruption happens, it could be a part of God's plan. And if it's God's plan, act on it. If it's not God's plan, determine how you can learn from it. Interruptions.
Okay.
So when I finally graduated from seminary, first time, I was pastoring a little church in East Texas. I'd gone through all kinds of stuff of what God wanted me to do and what God would allow me to do. And at one point I was going to be a hospital chaplain, and that didn't work. And finally I decided, well, I guess God's called me to be a pastor, and I'm pastored a church in college, a second church over in East Texas. And I'm getting ready to graduate, and a search committee showed up. Well, it wasn't a search committee. We didn't have those back then. We had pulpit committees, which I thought was interesting. They're searching for a pulpit. No, they're looking for a pastor. So here they were from the First Baptist Church of Buffalo, Texas. I am moving on up. I'm going from Mount Pisgah Baptist Church in Brushy Creek, where as far as I could tell, there was no mountain or Brushy Creek, but there was a church. And I am moving up. I am going to Buffalo. Look out, First Baptist Church of Dallas, Texas. I am coming. And before they made their decision to call me as pastor, I got another phone call from the Division of Student Ministries for the BGCT saying, could you come to Dallas and talk to us about a possibility? I should have known. My wife, first date in college, first date, said to me, God has told me I'm going to marry a BSU director. That's what she said on the first date. And I'm sitting in the front seat of my car thinking, next. This ain't gonna work. It worked. 61 years it's worked. And here I am about to move on up, and I get a call. We'd like to send you to be the BSU director at a place called Pan American College. I'd never heard of it. I'd heard of Pan American, that was an airlines. I thought, I'm going to work with airline stewardesses. This can't be all bad. No, it didn't work out that way either. So here I came. Pan American College, University, EUT, Pan American, whatever, name changes and so forth. But that's what God did. So back then we were able to teach credit Bible courses on campus or off campus for credit. That ended a number of years ago, but I was all of a sudden not only the Baptist student director, I was the instructor of Bible, 24 years old. And there was a Bible teacher with Baptist, and there was a Methodist, and there was a Church of Christ, and there was a Catholic. And whoever was the oldest and been there the longest got to be chairman. So after my first year, they all left. At age 25, I am departmental chairman of the Bible department at Pan American now University. Now, you know, I'm pretty sure it's still true, UT Rio Grande Valley, that the majority of students enrolled there are out of Catholic background. It was certainly true back then, 50 years ago. I think it had percentage, 90-something percentage were out of Catholic background, which didn't necessarily mean they were Catholics, but just when they filled out that religious preference thing, they checked Catholic. So I get big old Bible classes. Well, how did I get big Bible classes? Because it was Vietnam. And guys knew if they could take 12 hours, they wouldn't get drafted. So you go to register, and the enrollment boomed faster than they could plan the curriculum, which usually is planned 4 or 5 years in advance. So you go to registration, and you're in there an hour, and all of a sudden everything's full and no classes left. Well, what can I take? Bible. What do you know? I'll take Bible class. And here I've got a class full of Roman Catholic students who assumed I was a priest. I mean, why else would you be teaching Bible? So this particular day, we finished class. I walked to my office. I turned around behind my desk, and she's standing in the door. She'd followed me all the way. A little girl named Maria, that figures, doesn't it? Maria. She said, I need to talk. Okay. Have a seat. And because she thought I was a priest, I guess, she started confessing. And I started blushing. I would have made a terrible priest. I mean, she embarrassed me. And some of the things she was telling me that she had done. And finally she gets to the end of this and says, so is there any hope for me? So glad you asked. As a matter of fact, there is. And a few minutes later, she bowed her head and asked Jesus to forgive her for all those things she'd done and to become the Lord of her life. What if I had said to her, I don't have time right now, could you come back tomorrow maybe? Or maybe you should go see the Catholic priest. Well, that would have been a bad move. I knew him. He's a nice guy and a great golfer. He got in trouble, just like Baptists do.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't have been a good move to delegate. So what did I do? I took the interruption to be from God. And we added one more to the kingdom. That's what you do when they follow you to the office or when they show up and you're not expecting them or whatever. That's what you do. You say, I assume this is a God thing, and you deal with it. Last month, Dr. Terry Coy talked about the 1 Degree program. Some of you remember that? The idea was if you if you're flying an airplane, he sent me this, and you get 1 degree off when you take off, it affects everything on the flight. For instance, after 100 yards, you'll be off by 5 feet. After a mile, you'll be off by 92 feet. If you're flying from San Francisco to Los Angeles, you'll miss the runway by 6 miles because you started off 1 degree off. And it went on. If you're flying to Washington, D.C., you're going to end up in Baltimore because of that 1 degree off. And if you're flying around the world and you leave D.C. and you're going to fly all the way around the globe and you get back, you're going to land in Boston, 435 miles away because of that 1 degree off. Now, that's good. I liked hearing that, and I contacted him. I said, give me all that information. And then I thought, that has a lot to do with interruptions. When that person interrupts your life, you need to be right on target. Otherwise, who knows where they'll end up? If you're just 1 degree off, can't afford to be 1 degree off. You got to be ready. So closed doors, interruptions, sometimes they come from circumstances, sometimes God sends them. I don't know whether COVID was circumstances or a God send, but COVID came along. And I was doing 6 trips a year to Vancouver, and all of a sudden they closed the Canadian border, except essential personnel, and I wasn't essential. So I couldn't go to Vancouver. Some of you remember Lynn Sasser has been here a couple of times. He was pastor of Capital City Baptist in Mexico City, and I would go a couple of times a year to Mexico City to work with him. Mexican border closed. Can't go there. I'm getting phone calls, people canceling things. Folks have stopped coming out to events. And we're going to cancel your conference with us. And all of a sudden I had more white out in my calendar than I had ink. Being canceled. I got called to be interim pastor in Stephenville, Texas, and between the time they called me and said, could you come, and the first Sunday I was there, Governor Abbott shut us down and said you can only have 10 people in the worship service. First 7 Sundays I was there, I preached to an iPad. Because there were only 10 people there, and my wife and I were 2 of them. It was a tough time. And I'm sitting in the den at home in my reclining chair, and I'm about halfway praying and halfway dreaming, and just sitting there, no big deal. And I'm thinking, God, are you through with me? Is this it? Can't go north, can't go south. People canceling? I got nothing to do. Is it over? And I looked up, and my wife had put some of my books on the mantle over the fireplace. When I looked up, my eyes hit those books, and it was as if, understand, as if. I didn't hear anything, but it was as if God spoke and said, you don't have to go anywhere to write another book. So in the next few months, I got quarantined. My wife had COVID. So now I'm stuck at home. I got so desperate one day I put on Facebook, is there anybody living in Southwest Fort Worth who can bring me a cheeseburger from Waterbury? And I got a pretty good response. Double cheeseburger with a Dr. Pepper milkshake from Whataburger. Anyway, I'm stuck at home. And God says, you don't have to go anywhere. You can write another book. I wrote one, then I co-authored one, and then I compiled one while I'm shut down because the door's closed. So here's what I want you to hear in conclusion of that illustration. When society shuts a door, when you get interrupted and everything shuts down, the door closes, serve God on the front porch or in the hallway or somewhere else. You don't stop serving God because of interruptions. Okay, next month, Dr. Gabriel Cortez, Hispanic Education Director for Texas Baptist, will be here. I think some of you probably know him. He's been around. And he'll be here to teach next month. I'm planning on being here. You never know when the interruptions come. October's still kind of flexible as to, the date's not, but everything else is waiting to see what the cardiologist says. November 11th is graduation.
Yes, Delta Tricky.
That's when you get your certificate. If you've missed some of the sessions, they are online somewhere. I'm not sure where. They're on my Facebook page. If you can't find it anywhere else, just become Facebook friends and they're on there. But they're also on YouTube. And in other words, you can catch up and get a certificate, which with that certificate and $5, you can get a cup of coffee nearly anywhere in the Rio Grande Valley. This is a good deal. Or you can just hang it on your wall and impress people. It'll have the signatures of all the teachers that have come through here in this year's section on church leadership. So if you want to pray for me, November the 14th is when I see the cardiologist again, unless I need to see him before then. That's what he said. If you feel the elephant on your chest, call me. Oh, okay, I'll try to remember that. I'm not sure if the elephant sits down on my chest, what I might remember, but I'll try to call you. So that's, I feel good, and I love coming down here. I want to keep coming down here. I'm not interested in stopping this, but it is what it is. We'll see what the cardiologist figures out for me.